This is Dexter Gordon playing his best on There Will Never Be Another You. And these phrases spells out so much amazing jazz language that we should learn. It's not just the tones I'm talking about, it's really how we hear this and how we absorb this into our own playing, how we get to sound like this. And of course, then we need to be able to play it and know what it is. Knowing what it is enables you to open so many doors in the jazz language. You can move the learned parts around and add it into other tunes. This is the little part on Days of Wine and Roses. Completely other tune, completely other key. I know what it is, I can move it around. I remember when I started out playing jazz, I played a lot of classical piano, so had some skills when I was 18 or 19 years old. I could play the tones and I could even play these solos of Dexter Gordon. And what did I do? I did that, playing the solos. So starting out for me was really about learning the solos by ear and putting my fingers on the horn trying to play this. And I really believe that this is where you have to start when you play jazz. Learning these solos is an extremely important step to knowing the jazz language. So you learn this, what happens then when you have the material in your fingers? Now we have to play it, but we have to notice all the details in the original playing. When you listen to my version of these lines, you hear my articulation, I tongue all the tones. You probably also hear how I phrase the line, moving towards the resolve on that ninth on the B flat major chord. And then there's of course the build-up of the phrase. What is Dexter actually playing and how can we use this on different chords and different places, different tunes? Are you ready to dive into this very important material, how you hear jazz and how you can actually use it in your own playing? Let's start with this line. Listening and hearing is the most precious tool we have in music. Really learning the sound of something is more than just knowing it. There's a huge level of being conscious about what is actually played, what's the articulation, what's the phrasing, what are the tones and where do they go. And here we can start with phrasing and articulation. Listen to how the phrase is played, not analyzing, how does it go? And this, exactly this, is a huge part of the jazz language. How the line is sounding is a huge part of the intent of the line. What do the player actually want to do with this line? When we are learning this forms our way of playing our lines too. And this is exactly what we want. So now let's get into what's what. What I've tried in this line is basically just copying the Dexter Gordon line and then making a few changes. But my intention is to sound like Dexter Gordon. But what Dexter Gordon also teaches us is to be a little bit different, because in my line I try to hit those peculiar sounds of Dexter Gordon, like the ninth on the last bar on that B flat. So what did I actually change? Because the beginning is the same. I changed the last part, where I move a little bit different down another chromatic line, and then I'm hitting the ninth in a different way. But I'm keeping the ninth intact because this is a part of Dexter Gordon's sound. I only change very small bits of the lines. Why? Because I want to sound like Dexter Gordon. I want to integrate this part of his sound into my sound. I want this influence to be a remarkable part in my playing. What I do to get his influences into my sound is compose a lot of lines that sounds like the Dexter Gordon line. In this example, I still keep a lot of the Dexter Gordon line, but I change the first part of the lick, the C minor 7. Again, doing a lot to keep the phrasing, the articulation intact, and keeping a lot of the tones of the original Dexter Gordon lick. What I just mentioned earlier, keeping the sound of the player, is a very huge part of the jazz language. Their sound is the jazz language. That's the tradition we need to learn to speak the language. The nuances are, of course, in the phrasing and the articulation, but very much also in the choice of tones that the player uses. Let's do a couple of more examples. I want to pick out this line and let's take a closer look. When learning, borrowing, copying, stealing other players' lines, it's of course very important with the tones, but also what I mentioned, remember the phrasing and articulation. Just bring this with you when you're playing these lines and composing your own lines. Because if you want to learn the language of the player and integrate this into your part, you need to speak his language or her language. What I'm doing here is another part of the language. I'm imitating the sound, so I'm trying to get as closely as I can to the sound of the player. I play the line slow to really listen to, did I nail it? And playing it slower means you can check if you are hitting the articulation and the phrasing of the player. What I often do when I'm borrowing licks from players, is listen to the player, play it myself, listen to the player, back and forth, because I want the sound of the player as fresh in my memory as possible. Try finding the essence of the sound. What's remarkable and what do you really like? What's special to you? Why do you like this player? And this is what you need to learn. Because if you have the essence, what you think is the essence, you should play that because that's what you love. And that's what inspires you to play more jazz. Getting a little bit deeper into details with the tones. I love the way how Dexter Gordon plays a little bit different, using funny tones sometimes. And the devil is really in the details. This third. And it's just a third. But let's check it out. You see that I'm zooming in on a specific technique because this is the technique I found that I really like, trying to make that a part of my playing. I'll show you how I practice this and how I apply this into my playing. Often I make a short exercise out of the material, and this enclosure exercise will take you there. Looking at the enclosure exercise, the enclosure is diatonic above the target note and chromatic under the target note. And this deep dive is for me fun and games because this is how you apply it. This makes it really nice to do. So you see there are more enclosures. Let's try to integrate this into our playing. When you're applying enclosures, you need to ask yourself this.
You've got to ask yourself one question.
What is the enclosure for? What target note are you trying to hit? I'm trying to hit that G in the first part of this line. So putting the enclosure, then playing the G, and then moving through the line. You need to train this, and you need to play this hundreds and hundreds of times to get this really thoroughly into your playing, because else your fingers and your mind won't get it. Of course I want the enclosure to be applicable to other tones, so here I'm applying it to the A. Why would I hit the A on the G minor? Because it's a little bit odd, and Dexter Gordon would definitely do this. He would play some odd tones, making clear enclosures to this tone, and then move on in his line. Just a small remark here, if you are on Patreon or if you intend to go on Patreon, I'm there to help you. You can ask questions in the chat or comments on the post. All the parts of Dexter Gordon's solo, all the licks, all the exercises are all there on Patreon in the PDF. Go ahead, grab it, train to hear how you can apply this into your licks and your own composed phrases. The link to Patreon is just down below in the description. Of course Dexter Gordon is using more enclosures because it's a huge part of the jazz language. And we'll do this too, so add more enclosures into the line when you're ready. I just want to mention this, how to build your own lines. One of the ways I build my own lines is stealing parts of lines that are already there. So stealing part of one lick and stealing another part of another lick, and then put this together. This is really to get into the sound of the player I'm imitating, to get this thoroughly into my own playing. So steal the material you know you can already play, and in this way you get your own lines imitating the sound. The Dexter Gordon lines, the extracted exercise, and lots more material are in the PDF for this lesson. It's all on Patreon, and I'm there to help you finding your way through all this material. If you have any questions, ask them on Patreon in the chat or in the comments on the posts. The link to Patreon is right below in the description. I really hope to see you there. I love how Dexter Gordon can teach us so many things. This video tells you how to do this. Play along with Dexter Gordon, learn it by ear. Check out this video. Play music. Have fun.